Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watch Want, and thanks for logging on. Well, Brian Goffberg is away today, so I'm going to be playing Watch Solitaire with myself and hopefully a few hundred of my friends live on the net. I'm back in the driver's seat for this Wednesday only, but reunited and it feels so good, guys. Tonight, we're going to focus on one of my favorite topics because it's pretty much what I collect, dress watches. Everyone has the dive watch, everyone has the chronograph, and almost every chronograph out there is some sort of sports watch, but dress watches are near and dear to my heart. So tonight, we're going to be looking at some of the best options, new and pre-owned, to suit every budget. Of course, Watch You Want watch reviews, my old style 5 to 7 minute quick hit, is still available. Subscribe to my second channel, Watch You Want watch reviews, and you can see my thoughts on all dress watches from Patek Philippe down to Oris. But there's nothing low about an Oris, especially when you're talking value in pre-owned. Those are the hidden gems. And if you want to see Oris, Patek, and all the rest on my wrist, into your home and phone, you have to download the Goffberg Watchbox app. It's the best way to get news, views, reviews, and information you can use on luxury watches, especially of the dress persuasion. Now, you can track the value of your whole collection, one watch in your collection, both at the same time, or even use our real-time pricing AI to track the value of a watch you have your eyes set on, your heart set on, but have yet to acquire. That's the Goffberg Watchbox app on our website, goffbergwatches.com, header bar app, iOS and Android. All right, guys, let's do a wrist shot. And I have to say, this is a little bit of a fallen hero right here. This is my Jaeger-LeCoultre Master Ultra Thin 34. It's 5.85 millimeters thick, and it looks even thinner because of the knife edges of the case. Now, this one, I say died a hero because a client who bought a $20,000 watch wanted to see this, and in his exuberance, he wound it through the mainspring stop and busted it. So I have set it to, well, a completely arbitrary 610 for tonight. It's not running, but this one's going back to Le Sentier. Again, clients here can get away with almost anything. Now, I also want to remind you guys that this watch has a series of descendants using the same incredible caliber, 849. I want to show you 849 in the flesh real quick because you're going to see the stock graphic in a moment. But busted mainspring and all, this is what it looks like. Oh, not that. This is what it looks like, and you can see that the 849 is one of the great examples of a truly hand-finished movement that you can buy for under $4,000. You can buy this watch for $4,000 to $4,500 all day long, and no, mine is not for sale. But a lovely little piece. The silver dial variant is easier to find. So let's play this or that. Now, it's just me by myself tonight, but I think it's fun to unwrap two watches that I truly love. Before I jump into that, though, I do want to acknowledge all of our friends joining us live on the internet from places far-flung. Edward joining us from Sweden, Scott Hockenberry joining us from Virginia, Sequan, generally of Orlando. He's up with us during the hurricane down in Florida, so CQ the Watch Guy joining us from Philly, Fabi Schwartz joining us from Bavaria. We have Ahmet, we have Alexi from Finland, we have Hunter, we have Henri, we have Watch Yoda 600 Bayview AP Royalty UXXV from Scotland, and we even have one friend joining us from Bakersfield. Thumper, welcome. Okay, guys, so this or that. I'm taking two quintessential dress watches that can't be described as anything else but upscale attire for tight sleeves and formal cuffs. The Jaeger-LeCoultre Master Ultra Thin Jubilee, platinum, 39 millimeters, 800 pieces from 2013. It set the record at the time, 4.05 millimeters thick. The very next year, the Piaget Altiplano 900P reset the record at 3.65 millimeters thick, boldly building the caliber 900P into the physical firmament of the watch case. So the case and the movement are one and the same. Okay, let's go over what the JLC offers and then what the Piaget offers. This is a family feud, so each one, of course, in the Richemont family, no matter who wins, Johann Rupert. So the JLC Master Ultra Thin Jubilee retailed at the time for $17,200 US, a very fair deal when you consider that this watch had to be assembled by the Grande complications specialists at the manufacturer. They have a workshop called Specialty Horlogère that works on the minute repeaters, it works on the tourbillon, it works on the Grande complications, and it works on this watch. So the kind of pedigree in watchmaking you're getting, you already saw the caliber 849, but this is a watch at 39 millimeters across, 4 millimeters thick for all practical intents and purposes, that has knife-edged case lines. So as thin as it is, it looks even thinner with those knife-edged case lines. In profile, on your wrist, nestled down and strapped into place, it looks impossibly thin, almost like a second skin made of platinum, with a beautiful silver-grained dial and Dauphine faceted hands. Now, it does have the manual caliber 849 that I just showed you. This is an incredible movement that goes back to the early 1950s. And the 802 Ebauche that JLC developed for Vacheron and Audemars Piguet at the time. Vacheron and Audemars Piguet both still use this movement in various forms. Audemars Piguet calls it the 2003, Vacheron calls it the 1003, but it was designed by JLC, and you're getting its descendant, the latest version, in this watch. Now, the other thing to remember about this watch is it actually has a meaningful water resistance rating. 3 ATM may not sound like a lot, but with watches this thin, oftentimes you're looking at 2 ATM, 1 or none. And that's worth remembering when you consider a watch that's so thin it was built with a solid case back to prevent it from bending. Okay, and I'll also mention that with 888 pieces made in 2013, examples are still available, new old stock. So for all practical intents and purposes, discontinued but still available whether you want to buy pre-owned or new. Now, the Piaget Altiplano 900P. This is a watch that came out in 2014, and the name and the concept are an homage to the original Piaget 9P caliber that came out in 1957. That was really the beginning of Piaget's self-proclaimed, self-styled reputation as the master of the ultra-thin. Now, the 9P was a manual, the 900P is a manual. The difference here is that the 900P, 22 jewels, manual winding, ultra-slim, to the extent that the watch and the caliber are almost indistinguishable from each other. This is a watch that actually has its hands. If you look at the dial, and this is a great profile shot, 3.65 millimeters thick, but if you look at the dial of the watch, the hands are actually set lower than the chapter ring representing the hour track, and that's to keep the hands clear of the crystal, itself less than 1 millimeter thick. This watch is so slim we're almost into stunt territory. But again, this is a watch from a real watchmaker that comes complete with a warranty from the manufacturer, internationally valid. Is it bold? Yes. Does it push the limits of what's possible with a dress watch? Yes. Is it really water resistant? Not in any real sense. Splashes and rain only. It's about 1 to 2 ATM water resistant per Piaget, but I would not strap it down too hard, and I would not test the theory. But still, this is a watch that gives you the ability to see the movement, and that's not universal in ultra-thin, sub-5 millimeter watches. The reason being, oftentimes, like the JLC, a solid case back is needed to reinforce the rigidity of the watch, or the watch is so incredibly thin that simply putting a display case back on the back of it would add a millimeter or so and ruin whatever claim it has to record status. So for various reasons, we don't see too many sapphire display case backs on the truly freakishly thin watches, so Piaget brings the movement out on the dial side. All right, if I had to pick one of these, I'm sorry to say, I'm going to pick the one that, in my opinion, is more like a real watch. The one you could wear not with abandon, but at least with confidence that it can do everything a conventional dress watch can do. It can take a hard splash from water when you're washing your hands if you get caught out in the rain. Remember, I'm lately of Miami, so I'm used to that. And also, because I do like to strap my watches down to the smallest hole on the strap itself, I often buckle my watches tight, and I just don't think the Piaget 900P is necessarily there from a durability standpoint. So considering I've already bought myself a 34 millimeter Master Ultra Thin, it's not too great a leap to see me opting for the Jubilee 1833 limited edition. But you really can't go wrong with either of these. If you know you're easy on your watches and you want something fabulous, consider the Piaget. But I know where I put my money. By the way, the Piaget at $26,500 also carries a significant price premium, and if there were any doubt, that helps me make the choice. All right, guys, let's take a quick look at the chat box tonight. Question from Aaron Murphy, best JLC Reverso in rose gold under 10K. I would say, quite frankly, your best bet is going to be a standard Grande, the Grande, 42 millimeters by about 25.5. This is a watch that you can buy. There's still many examples available new. You can buy them pre-owned for less. But this is a watch that is the larger of the two classical Reverso sizes. The 38 millimeter lug-to-lug is the classique, and that's truly the original 1931 Reverso. The Grande was 42 millimeters lug-to-lug, and it came out in 1991 with the 60th anniversary Reverso. You get that watch in a rose gold case, time-only, caliber 822. You're going to pay less than $10,000. You're going to get a classic case profile that comes about as close to the famed golden aspect ratio, and I think it's like 1.618 to 1, but the Grande case comes about as close to that as any Reverso ever made. It could be considered the Reverso, so that would be my recommendation to you. All sorts of comments and questions coming through. All right, I want to give a shout out to Ramiro joining us right now, to Juan, to Marco. I want to give a shout out right now to Andrew O'Connor, who's joining us, asking, what is a good dress watch for people who are not easy on their watches? That's a great question because, frankly, I would say at that point you want to look for a thin sports watch. But let me come back to that in just a moment, Andrew, because I think I've got an answer for you in the Richard Mille RM16. But just in case you're not ready for that, you're not into the style, you're not looking to go RM, I'll come up with a great answer for you along the lines of, I think you could pull off a Jaeger-LeCoultre tribute to deep sea as a dress watch. And here's why. At 40 millimeters with a plexiglass in vintage fashion, old-time case lines, old-time dial detailing, old-time bezel calibration, I would say that you can pull off the tribute to deep sea, which is water-resistant like a true sports watch and rugged like a sports watch, as a dress watch. So I think with no compromise, you can easily pull that off. I would also say that you need to consider something like a Rolex Milgauss. I would say get a non-GV model because they're thin, they're 40 millimeters, they're simple, unadorned, beautifully balanced with no date on the dial, the way a lot of folks prefer their dress watches, and you're getting a watch that's still 100 meters water resistant, that has a Rolex movement with Rolex shock protection, free sprung, full balance bridge. I would say that's definitely in the discussion. So you're probably going to repurpose an elegant sports watch rather than go strictly speaking with a dress watch. See where I'm going with that? Okay. Now we have a question from Dendrobates, who is asking, in the 2,000 to 4,000 range, what would you recommend? I'm considering the JLC Master Ultra Thin and a Rolex Datejust. I would say if the watch doesn't have to routinely get wet, go with the Ultra Thin. It's what I bought, and honestly, this is a watch, like I said, with a handmade construction, handmade movement that you can buy all day in silver dial variant. We're going to go to our macro in a moment, but you can buy it in silver dial variant all day for $3,000 to $3,500, and this is as good as it gets in the dress watch realm. And again, the Audemars and the Vacheron links run deep with this one. But we've got some more options coming up. Now, here's the thing about dress watches, guys. We haven't even defined what a dress watch is, but we should probably talk about this because we love to classify things. You know, the second you go on Chrono24, the second you go on a vendor's website, you start using filter tools to immediately classify watches and sort them by classification. So we need a definition of a dress watch, or at least an understanding that we can agree on. So let's start dress or formal watch ground rules, if any. Well, there definitely are some. I think above all, it has to be something you can wear with a tight sleeve or cuff, because if you're wearing a formal watch, it makes sense that it would pair with formal attire. Now, whether you're talking conventional tight sleeves or French cuffs, cufflinks that could hang up a thicker watch, you want a slim profile. And if the watch isn't, strictly speaking, thin, at least have a sloped bezel, a stepped bezel, a rounded case flank. We're looking at a gorgeous Breguet Classique here to show you what a thin watch is really all about. I'm talking a fraction the thickness of a finger. This is not a Rolex Submariner at 12.5 millimeters thick. This is 5, 6, 7 millimeters thick. An Audemars Piguet 15202 Jumbo Extra Thin, that's 8.3 millimeters. We're talking that kind of profile. Now, designed to be worn with formal attire, as opposed to simply succeeding with formal attire. I was answering a question earlier about a durable dress watch, and you do have some options there, but realistically a lot of sports watches are repurposed as dress watches when they're simply adorned, when they're uncomplicated, when they don't have rotating bezels like the Omega Seamaster Aquaterra family. I would consider that a dress watch for someone who really expects to beat a dress watch. That's your surf and turf Seamaster, and it would be my first choice for that kind of application. But a true dress watch doesn't just succeed or allow you to pull it off with formal attire. It's designed that way. So I also think it should soar on the strength of minimalism. Now, balance, elegance, all of these things are important. That's why something that is three-hand without a date, or even two-hand, like you look at my little Master Ultra Thin, those of you who are joining us tonight, you're going to see a lot of this watch, but you can see two hands. And I don't mean Panerai Luminor base style, I mean truly two hands, where I think our macro might be out of commission for the night. I think I wore it out. Sorry, guys. I'll pay for it. But the point is, simplicity is key, and balance is key. Also, at most, a date might feature something like a Saxonia Longomatic. A date might feature. So you can have it best if it's balanced. Longa probably does it best with the double-digit date anchored at the 12 o'clock station. And it may be manual or it may be automatic. Both are acceptable, but the best application of an automatic is going to be a micro rotor in a dress watch, because it's in the same plane as the other bridges. It's in the same plane as the barrel, the train. Everything that you have there is flat, thin, compact, and no thicker than if it were a manual wind watch. Plus, as a bonus, you get an open, expansive view of the movement. This is why Patek has long made the 240 micro rotor its upscale automatic for the Grande complications, for the perpetual calendars, and it's rare to see it in a time-only watch, or in the case of the 5235, an annual calendar. I also think it's important to remember that there should be no outright dimensional requirements. Proportions are important, and generally spare lugs, a minimalist bezel, these are key. But a watch does not have to be a certain size to be a dress watch. Remember that your IWC Portuguese reference 325, the very first Portuguese, is a big watch, and it dates back to the 1930s. It's an oversized dress watch. It was then, it is now. So I wouldn't get too uptight about size, other than to say the watch should look graceful on your wrist. So a 45 dress watch can absolutely happen, but if your wrist is like kind of chicken thin like mine, again, use discretion. Be your own judge, avoid lug overhang. Okay, so we have a question about, this is from Justin in the chat box. Okay, so he says, the secrets of, okay, this guy's weird. This is kind of new age, a little bit more crystals and UFOs than I'm prepared to address straight up. But a question from Juan Huertas. Tim, what's your opinion on the Longa Saxonia thin 37 millimeters? I would say, quite honestly, it's great. And if you're like me and you've got a smaller wrist, it's probably perfect. How's our macro camera doing? Let me show you what a 37 looks like on my right wrist, which is about 17 centimeters. So this is a 37 on an average to slightly below average wrist. I think it's a perfect size for a dress watch. I think for most people, 35, 34, like my Master Ultra Thin, is going to be too small. So I think this is a perfect compromise. It's not oversized. It's not even a modern size for a dress watch. I think modern would be 38, 39 plus. This is just about perfect for me. The question I would ultimately ask is, are you comfortable with broad expanses of unadorned dial? I think because the Lange Saxonia 37 is so compact, it makes the most of its details and the four fundamental parts of a watch: the dial, the case, the lugs, and quite frankly, the bezel. And I think that looks better in 37 than in a larger size. When you start to get to the larger size, I feel it's almost a little bit austere, and that would be one of my only knocks against the Master Ultra Thin Jubilee from the beginning of this video. So I like it, but you be the judge. How much unadorned dial do you like, and also how big is your wrist? Okay, questions coming in. Can you suggest a rugged sport dive watch under 3,000? For those of you just joining us, this is the Dress Watch Show. I would say ultimately your best rugged sport dive watch would be consider Tutema, consider various pre-owned SIN references. I would also check out honestly, old Rolex Oyster Perpetuals are tougher than you think and 100 meters water resistant. I would also say consider the Oris Aquas. It's a great watch and hugely underrated. Plus the Oris Diver 65. You really can't go wrong with Oris in the sub $3,000 dive watch category. Okay, now a question about the Parmigiani 1950 Tonda from City Greek 1. This is a great watch because as of 2017, you can now buy it in steel. It's priced right around $10,000, which means that play your cards well, be nice to your dealer. You can probably get it for a little bit less than that with a warranty and all of the warm and fuzzies that come with that factory protection. First of all, the caliber 701 micro rotor is high horology, the real deal. Remember, there are clients of Parmigiani that do not advertise the fact that represent the absolute haute de gamme. So when you buy a Parmigiani, you're buying a company that also has feelers out throughout the industry, and it goes everywhere from Bulgari, Sotirio Bulgari references to Richard Mille in the sporting realm. So you're getting all of that engineering DNA in the Tonda 1950 with a micro rotor that is worthy of Roger Dubuis at a fantastic price with a design that is recognizable across the room and unmistakable for anything but a Parmigiani. Plus, it wears really well. At $39.40, you're talking about a watch that most wrists can wear. It's not so small that it looks petite, but because of the unique teardrop lugs, it will also fit a genuinely tiny wrist. If your wrist is 13 to 13.5 centimeters, you can wear the Parmigiani Tonda 1950, and you can wear it with panache. So I also want to focus on a watch that's well suited to smaller wrists and also packs a micro rotor movement. This is going to be my first highlight watch of the night. It is the Patek Philippe Calatrava 5000. This was a watch introduced in white gold in '92. It finally rolled out in yellow and rose over the next 2 years, and it was phased out in 2005 when succeeded by the reference 6000. But here's the thing about this watch. It's one of those rare cases I mentioned. It's a 33.5 millimeter watch, but rare cases where Patek Philippe used the caliber 240 micro rotor in a time-only watch, in a simple Calatrava. It's incredibly potent in this combination of yellow gold and black dial. By the way, this is a watch we have in stock, guys, so if you're interested, a great way to get into Geneva Hallmark Patek Philippe with display caseback and micro rotor automatic. This is a watch I would pick if you don't like the busy dial of the 6000. A lot of people never warmed up to the radial date, and now that the 6000 is the 6006 and it's 2 millimeters bigger at 39 millimeters than the 6000, if you didn't like the 6000, you're not going to like the 6006. The 5000 is the watch for you. And I'll also say the watch wears like a 35, so don't be afraid of the 33.5. A watch with this much punch and panache wears big. Remember, the man makes the watch, not the other way around. This is an incredible timepiece that you can buy all day for between $12,000 and $13,000 with a Patek Philippe pedigree, again the Geneva seal and a display caseback, which was not common on Pateks from the early 90s. This is an awesome and underappreciated watch. And speaking of awesome and underappreciated dress watches, I would be remiss not to mention arguably the best dress watch from Rolex over the last 20 years. Yes, Rolex and the Cellini Prince. That's my wrist, guys, and you can see the watch is 29 millimeters by 45, so it's about the size of a Grande Reverso Ultra Thin length to width. It's also one of the most imaginative and unique modern Rolex families. 5441 reference, to be released since the 1980s. Now this is a watch that was originally launched in 2005, phased out so quietly, indecently low-key in 2015. It really deserved a send-off. And I have to say that if you're looking for something that evokes the Art Deco era, that is redolent of the 20s and 30s, if you want to think Fritz Lang's Metropolis, the top of the Chrysler Building, the decor of the Empire State Building, the interior of the Normandy or the Queen Mary, the Rocketeer, that kind of Art Deco sensibility, and you don't want to go Reverso, this is the way to go. I'll even say very few Reverso watches are styled with as much exuberance as the Rolex Cellini Prince. Now this is a watch that has real Rolex heritage. It's not a Johnny-come-lately to the non-round watch class. Old Rolex Prince references like the 971, the 1862, the 1490 represent great value in vintage today. Vintage hasn't quite discovered these, but the Prince Cellini draws directly on this heritage. So again, real Rolex design DNA from a golden era of design in general. Now this is also a watch that came in 4 awesome variants. You've got your choice of 2 models in white gold, 1 in yellow gold, 1 in rose gold. Each dial had a distinctive motif. So this is anything but one of those Rolex Oyster Perpetuals where you change the dial and that's a different reference. Each one of these things had a distinct identity that ran movement deep. And the caliber 7040, and this was the first display caseback production Rolex, by the way, guys. First display caseback production Rolex. So it actually matters what's inside for once. Rolex guys tend not to be movement guys. This is an exception. This caliber 7040 was a manual wind, hand-finished, hand-stylized COSC chronometer with a 3-day power reserve. And here's the thing. Each was hand-decorated with movement finish to match the dial design of the watch. So if you had Clou de Paris in gold on the movement, you had Clou de Paris in gold on the dial. These things are way underappreciated, aesthetically refined, mechanically refined, compact enough that you can wear it on a small wrist with all the panache of a Rolex but the elegance that you would expect of something like a Vacheron. This is a great undiscovered watch that retailed for between $15,500 and $17,000 new, and these days this is a watch that you can pick up for between $7,000 and $10,000. And again, they're only a few years old, so you don't have to deal with the hornet's nest that is true vintage. Now, I mentioned early on that there are some sports watches that cross the threshold into the world of dress. That is, watches that go both ways. Oftentimes, a watch like the Audemars Piguet 15202 ST, swimmable by Audemars Piguet's own insistence, dress watch that's ultra thin, but rugged enough in steel with a screw-down crown that you might say, okay, I'll accept that this is a sports watch that can dress up. Richard Mille did that with the 2007 RM016 Extra Flat. Now this is a watch that really is a sports watch in almost all respects. Made in titanium, made in rose gold, made in white gold, with an automatic winding movement. It even has a date. So I'm going to concede that this is as close as Richard Mille came prior to the RM67 to a dress watch, and it works beautifully for that purpose. RM got serious about slim when it was challenged by its clients to take its traditional tonneau and rectangular forms and work them into a shape and proportion that could be used with a dress cuff. Let's face it, the earlier RMs were spectacular, but they were not discreet and they did not sit low on the wrist. Proud of the wrist, RM was proud of them. But this one, the 16, is the first that you can wear with a straight face in a suit. Now here's the other thing. 49 millimeters lug to lug by 39 millimeters across the case by 8.25 millimeters thick. This is not a small watch. This is a thin watch. So if you like your watches to have personality and you love the Richard Mille aura, the idea of the racing machine or the flying machine for the wrist, technology in horological form, you get that. You get the titanium movement. You get a cut into the sapphire caseback so that you can have both automatic winding with the traditional variable inertia, variable winding speed Richard Mille rotor system, and a thin profile. They actually cut into the sapphire. That's what that circle is. It's a recess for the winding rotor. It's still mounted on shock absorbers. It's still a high-impact watch with a ceramic inlay in the crown for durability. This is a dress watch in function, not necessarily in intent. But with a 3 ATM 30-meter water resistance rating, maybe it is a dress watch. It's definitely not one that you would take bathing. So this is a gray area that I'm throwing in because A, it's cool, and it's an RM with grace that I have tried on firsthand, well, first wrist I should say, and enjoyed thoroughly. Every version of the RM16 has always astounded and thrilled me, and it's one of those watches that is on my hypothetical list in the era after I've completed my JLC collection. A great choice if you've got to go RM and you've got to go thin. Now, questions coming in. Sequan is noting that Richard Mille is a polarizing brand. That's a fact. It is. You like it or you don't like it. Now, the look of the watches is going to polarize people. The fact that they do bring in calibers from Vaucher for most of their mass-produced models. Watches like the RM11 typically have a Vaucher caliber and a Dubois de Praz module for the complication. And of course, the watches are very expensive. There's a Richard Mille designer premium tacked on to whatever the watch would cost under any other nameplate. So yes, highly polarizing, but those who like them love them, and to each his own. 3,500 made per year, and they sell every single one. Now, other questions coming in. This is from Dendrobate saying, for a dress watch, for me, it has to have a certain je ne sais quoi about it, like a Reverso tribute to 1931 Rouge or an F. Pigeon Souverain, the chronometer bleu, or even a Milgauss Z blue. I love all of those choices, and believe me, you and I see eye to eye in a way that you don't even know, because there's a Reverso Rouge coming up in this discussion. But I would say, yeah, the watch, I think the je ne sais quoi that he's mentioning is that the watch has to have a little bit of flair. It can't be antiseptic. It can't just be small. It can't just be nicely proportioned. It does have to have some panache. It has to be the crease in the suit. It has to be the ruffle in the bow tie. It has to be the rose in the lapel. I think there's something to be said about having a je ne sais quoi factor. The chronometer bleu definitely has it. The Milgauss Z blue, in its zany way, is still balanced, nicely proportioned, and elegant in a way that no Cyclops eye or rotating bezel Rolex sports watch can be. So I agree with you there. Now, following Richard Mille, I want to take things back a notch into the realm where we can talk about a watch that is relatively affordable. It's appropriate for someone looking for his first dress watch, or maybe even just his first fine watch, and that is one of my favorites from Blancpain. Blancpain. This is the brand that Jean-Claude Biver and Jacques Piguet pulled off the scrap heap in 1983 and revitalized as a no-nonsense haute de gamme house. They build between 5,000 and 8,000 watches a year, but historically it was even less. And during the 90s and early 2000s, when the reference 7002 chronometer was available, they were all about traditional proportions, and this one is wonderful. 36 millimeters, 7 millimeters thick. It has perfect proportions. A double Gadron stepped bezel, minimalist lugs, a nice fluted crown to give it a little bit of masculine heft, and of course those beautiful applied and hand-polished Breguet-style Arabic numerals with broadsword hands and small seconds. Now this is a hand-adjusted chronometer. They took the Blancpain caliber 64-1, which started life as a Peugeot 7001. They modified the bridges, they modified the train, they altered the power source, they hand-finished everything, and they adjusted it, added a Triovis micro-adjusting fine regulation device so it could get a chronometer certificate. And I believe along with the 1195, it's one of only 2 chronometer-certified Blancpain watches in the modern era, which is not just darned impressive considering the thickness of the movement. The thinner the movement, the tougher it is to regulate. But the fact that you can buy these watches in steel all day long for $5,000 $5,000 to $7,000 with boxes and papers means this is a great way to get into hand-finished and handmade watches, high horology, a chronometer, a versatile steel watch that can do everything really but swim, and of course if you like the Blancpain class of dress watches, but what they're doing with the L Evolution, maybe the 50 Fathoms, isn't up your alley, you're more of a dress watch guy, this is where you want to be. In a lot of ways, this is a watch that has all the panache, the finish, and the flair of something like a Girard-Perregaux, an Audemars, or a Vacheron for 1/3 the money. And no compromise in the quality of the finish on the final versions of that. By the latest one you can get, they built them into about, I want to say, 2003 to 2005. The latest versions had the best finish by far and the display case backs. All right, so comments coming in. So this is a question from Patrick Noswell, who's asking, speaking of Breguet, how about the brand? On a different note, I like the Omega Globemaster. Well, I'll say what Breguet does is fantastic. It took some time for the company to gain momentum under Swatch Group after the 2000 purchase. They were coming from the Investcorp holding group that really wasn't that interested in the brand, and although they did enough to keep the brand alive and advance the discussion, it didn't become the true Audemars, Vacheron, Patek rival that it could have been until Swatch Group bought it. The landmark watches that you want to consider are the 7027 La Tradition that came out in 2005. That was the first example of a true modern era Breguet. Everything that came before was based on the design language that Daniel Roth created in the 80s when Breguet was still owned by the Chaumet Jewelry Brothers of France. Those watches were basically a pocket watch transposed into wristwatch styling cues. And it worked. But to create something entirely new, a break with the past, that's 2005 and La Tradition. Now, there are also some wonderful references. The enamel dialed, I want to say Classique 7147, I believe it is one of the best watches for the money. Ultra thin at about 6 millimeters, a nice modern size at around 40 without being oversized. It has all the Breguet cues, plus a stunning enamel dial, small seconds, blued Breguet hands. I think that shows how much Breguet gets it, because that's a simple watch that has the same kind of impact and gravitas as the grand complications they make. And ultimately, that's the measure of an haute de gamme manufacturer. And actually, we just had the Blancpain 7002 up. Are they as impressive at the entry level as they are at the top of the line? Breguet can finally say that it is. It has an even and attractive collection at every price point, at every level of complication. And I would also say Blancpain does too. Especially on the pre-owned market where every watch lives in perpetuity and you can go back and buy something that's no longer in production. Okay, now question from Paul Ratherham, what about a Navitimer as a dress watch? Absolutely. The best option would be something like the 38 millimeter case size from the 1990s. It's discontinued now, but if you want it as a dress watch, that's the watch you want. There's also, I want to say, a 37, 38 millimeter Rattrapant version of the Navitimer from the 90s. That's probably the ultimate choice if you want one as a dress watch. Perfect proportions, perfect size, and a little bit of high horology complication. I believe it's a Frédéric Piguet 1185 in there, so you've got another, we're all about the Blancpain links tonight. I like it. Also, if you have a 40 millimeter reference 806, also a great play as a dress watch, especially since I would shy away from getting any vintage watch wet, and the high and dry is the realm of the pure dress watch. Plus, 806 Navitimers, even with AOPA wings, even with monotone black dials, even with beaded bezels and first generation hands, are still relatively affordable. You can buy them for under $10,000, and they've got more panache than any evil Nina or first-gen Tag Autavia you can find out there. Now, a company that I love that doesn't get enough play but does the dress watch as well as anyone is Moser. And Moser's Mayu Small Second was one of their first generation watches before the 2012 buyout by the Milan family brought a little bit of order, and they always had great watches, but the administrative side was always lacking. The business sense and the watch sense came together in 2012, but the Mayu was an early product of this incredibly imaginative second watchmaker of Schaffhausen, and maybe the most innovative, I might even say. Now, the Mailloux small second at around 38.8 millimeters is a great choice that you can get in palladium, yellow gold, white gold, rose gold. The caliber itself is an HMC 321 with a 3-day power reserve and a case-back power reserve gauge. Hand-finished, full balance bridge, double overcoil hairspring. So not only does the overcoil fight gravity with its concentric beating, but you have one that is 180 degrees out of phase with the other. So depending on which one is relatively weaker or stronger vis-a-vis gravity in any given direction, you take the overcoil advantages and double them with this 180 degree double opposed hairspring setup. It also has a platform escapement that can be pulled out as a unit for quick servicing. This is about as innovative as a time-only watch gets. Now, it does have a center seconds brother called the Monard, but I think the Mailloux with the small seconds is the dress watch ace of that pair of fraternal twins. And this is a fantastic watch that you can buy for between $8,500 and $10,000 pre-owned. It has gorgeous movement finish, gorgeous fume dial options, nice proportions, beautiful scalloped lugs. Everything about this watch is undulating and fluid. Everything about it is soft and feminine and beautiful in so many varieties. It's not effeminate. It has feminine, sinuous lines. Think a beautiful Greek statue. It's basically like that. Something carved out of marble. It's almost like with the Mailloux, Moser relieved the metal to bring out the beauty inside. It released the sculpture from the metal. Okay, guys. Questions coming in. Edward is saying, yes, Moser Cie. Alexei, Moser, I love. Dendrobates, I like the Moser Alpine watch. Of course, we just saw the third generation Apple Watch come out in the last 24 hours. The Swiss Alp Watch is their send-up of the Apple Watch. Everything but the copyright infringement. It's a clever ploy by Moser to poke a little bit of fun at the Cupertino giant's expense, and I absolutely love it. You guys, we are on the same frequency tonight. All right. So I also want to mention, because I am one of their homeboys, Jaeger-LeCoultre. Now, earlier on, we had a shout out for the Reverso Rouge from one of our viewers, and I have to say that this is the modern Reverso in a time-only format. First of all, there was the tribute to 1931 in 2011. This was effectively the 80th anniversary Reverso. It was good. There was the Fagliano strap US Boutique Limited Edition of 100 in 2011 too. A little bit more vintagey, Shell Cordovan exclusive strap from Casa Fagliano in Argentina, best known for their polo boots. And then there was the worldwide Fagliano limited edition that came the next year, also in 100 pieces. But the Grande Reverso Rouge in 2012 put them all back on the trailer. The Grande Reverso Rouge, tribute to 1931, so vivid, so potent, exuberant, even a little bit flamboyant for a Reverso, became the definitive tribute to 1931. I will also say it's defined by its insane red lacquer dial with hand-applied white gold indices and white gold broadsword hands. This is the rare, solid color dial with very few small details that actually deserves examination under a loupe, so rich and deep is its gloss. It almost looks like you could stick a finger through it, like it's wet paint. And I'll say it surpasses its own historic inspiration. The rare tribute watch that literally eclipses the original. This is now the definitive red-dialed Reverso. 1930s, I'm sorry, you can have your watch back. I'll take the Reverso Rouge tribute to 1931. Now, being a modern-day classic and an instant legend does carry a bit of a price premium, and this watch originally sold for $8,400. It's steel. You'll see them for between $10,000 and $12,000 today. It was a boutique-only edition. I don't know how many were made, but I have it on good account. It was less than 1,000 and probably less than 500, so it has rarity on its side too. At 46.8 millimeters lug-to-lug by 27.4 wide and a wonderfully svelte 7.3, shocking for a watch with a rotating carriage, this is the definition of a dress watch from JLC. Still worth every cent, even at the price premium. Now guys, I'm going to end with a brand that all of us know and a model that we sort of remember, but not well. It's more important for the line that it spawned, and as such, it's an instant collectible, and it's a true dresser. Omega, with the DeVille Co-Axial, 1999 limited edition of 999. What you can't see here is that this watch has a combination of rose gold case with a Guerdron stepped dial, stepped semi-teardrop lugs, and a Blancpain blue applied rose gold index dial. That's right, it's a rose gold watch with a blue Blancpain and hand applied rose gold indices and numerals. This is a stunning watch to see in person. Sure, Omega wrote a little bit of a phone book on the dial, but all the same, if ever a watch warranted it, it would be the first ever serially produced watch featuring the George Daniels coaxial escapement. This is the caliber 2500 Alpha, guys, one of the rare watches that I would say is worth buying without any mechanical upgrades, even if it doesn't run, just to say you've got it in the collection. Now it's 38 millimeters and change, so it's traditionally sized. The style is unarguably a dress watch. This was the first, before the Globemaster, the first unarguable reincarnation of the Blancpain constellation, and it came on a watch that changed not just Omega's course of history, but the entire watch industry. Today, everything from Audemars Piguet to Laurent Ferrier to F.P. Journe is working on some sort of alternative technology escapement. And with the coaxial, Omega was bold, Omega was first, and this is the watch. For those keeping score, if you want to make sure you're getting numero uno, the first series, it's reference 5931-8100. What do these cost pre-owned? Well, it's the only way to get them. And they cost between $4,500 and $7,000, depending on whether it's verifiably a 2500 Alpha and how much of the original boxed set comes with it. Now, it's a fantastic watch that's also fairly slim, stunning in person, beautifully designed. It's got a little bit of a, almost like a mailed fist punch to it with the rose gold and the blue and the facets to the dial when you see it in person. And I will also say there's a 99-piece special edition with a stunning salmon dial. And these allegedly were put together under the personal aegis of George Daniels. So this is also out there, guys. I don't have pricing on these because I've never seen one for sale. They don't come up. That's how serious a collector's item this series was. But wow, that thing is sizzling. So hot I can feel the heat coming off my display monitor with the picture up in the corner. Okay, guys, now here's the thing. $4,500 to $7,000, I would say this is a buy because along with the Museum Watch 1932, which was made in only 135 pieces, and the 2008 Project Alaska II limited edition, this first generation DeVille Coaxial might be one of the 3 most collectible and I would certainly say most coveted modern Omega references. The fact that the price is not terribly high is solely down to 2 factors. One, people who are ignorant and don't know their history. Trust me, the guys who do are already snapping these up. And second, the fact that it is a traditionally sized dress watch. We come full circle back to our original topic, dress watches, and the DeVille Coaxial Plank Owner Generation 1 999-piece blue and rose gold is that. It's a dress watch. It's one to wear with a suit and tie. It's one to wear with dress cuffs. It's one to wear to a wedding. It's one to wear to your red bar with your most dapper tailored suit. And I'll say this is breaking the fourth wall of the dress watch discussion, but wearing your dress watch with any old attire. I think that as long as you keep water resistance in mind, there is nothing wrong with wearing a gold dress watch in polo shorts and a polo shirt. There's nothing wrong with wearing your ultra thin in a t-shirt. I've done it. This little guy has accompanied me to Costco. And trust me, I don't get dressed up to buy 3-pound tubs of cottage cheese. So most of my watches are dress watches. And for those of you who are dress watch enthusiasts, or if you're only in the sports watch realm, if you got in via Rolex, if you got in via Omega Seamasters, if you got in via Breitling chronomats. The bottom line is that if you want to make the jump to dress watches, don't limit yourself. This is a class of watch that you really can wear with anything. As I've always said, it's the man that makes the watch, not the other way around. Dress it down with the attitude, with the cool, with the sense of humor. Don't take yourself too seriously. I know I don't. I have to laugh at myself constantly, and if I don't, these guys around here keep me honest. That's what it's like to wear a dress watch with any old thing. The man makes the watch, and the watch makes it fun. Thanks for joining us tonight, guys. I appreciate all of you who got up early, all of you who stayed up late in far-flung time zones. Thank you so much. I'm Tim. This is Watch You Want. They're the three amigos. Thanks for logging on.